So let's have a look now at the weapon systems. In Shmup OS we have two types of weapons. One which is based on a particle system, like the first version. If you have used the Shmup Baby, it was called it's a particle weapons. And another one which is munition based. The munition weapon system is just simply pooled game objects. Let's just start creating them and you'll see how it works. So inside the player, by the way, the agent settings you see here are pretty straightforward. Vitals are for the health and shield, and you have some invincibility setting after spawning, and you have collision, and for the player you have upgrades. These are pretty straightforward. Now for the weapons, any weapon you are going to add anywhere on the player hierarchy needs to be added in this list over here. This is absolutely essential for that, so that the player shooter script can access the weapons, and also this is needed for the pool, so that the munition pool can actually find where the listed weapons are and pool the bullets. So let me first start off with the munition weapons. I'm going to edit Shmup boss weapons and create a player munition weapon. So this is just a simple game objects, which is the weapon. I'm going to drag and drop it over here. And let's just make sure that it has a 0 position. Now it's going over there. So I'm going to set it to 0. And to make sure, I'm going to make it a little bit. Okay, so that's the position of the weapon. Now the advanced rotation options, you don't really need to bother much with them. Each one is explained with the tooltip and in the documentation. This is just in case you need to fiddle with the rotation. Most likely with the enemy, the ways they are spawned, you might need to change the rotation. Okay, so we have different upgrade stages because this is a player weapon. Let's just start with one stage, and that's it. Now we will need, with the munition weapon inside the stage, we'll need a munition. Now, as I said, there are two types of munition. There are bullets and there are missiles. So let me just grab one from the prefabs, munition bullets. As you notice over here, all these bullets can be used with both the enemy munition weapons and the player munition weapons. For the missiles, it's a different thing, where player missiles are different from enemy missiles. Namely, they have a different mover and a different tracker. So this is, for example, an enemy missile, and this is a player missile. It has a different tracker and a different mover. All right, and so we have over here our weapon, and it has its bullet. And let's add a sound, which we'll show, and give it a volume and the cooldown for the sound, and that's it. Let me give it a rate, for example, and I can perhaps preview it. And I can see, for example, that the bullets are too big, so I'm going to change the scale. And now they are more realistic. Now about the preview button. The preview button is just a quick way for you to know the rate and the size. But if you, for example, let me apply these changes at the player so that they can be applied. And if I open up the prefab, if I hit preview, at the prefab, I won't be able to see anything. So the preview only works inside the scene if you have a weapon inside the scene. Additionally, if you have your rate set to 0, or you have only a low rate and your bullet is slow, or its speed is set to 0, or if you have forgotten the scale, or if the scale is at 0, also you'll not see any preview. So the preview, just make sure that you have a correct rate scale, and you have a prefab set, and you're inside the scene, just to make sure that your preview works. Okay, so that's our weapon, and as I've said, you need to connect it. I'm just going to drop it over here, and again I'm going to apply my changes to the prefab, and theoretically the weapons should be working now. Let me just save the scene. Let me play. So now we have a bullet system, a weapon system. So let me just look at the bullet over here, and it's you know, the pool limit, how many bullets are pooled, and this one it makes the rotation of the bullet dependent on the weapon, the damage, the lifetime. If you have, for example, let me give it just 2 seconds lifetime. It's too long. Let me make it 1 second, or just 0.5. So you see it just dies off. Let's keep it at 0, which means it's infinite. It will get now despawned by the despawning field. So if I take a look at the despawning field, this one despawns it. Just 1 second. You have here, for example, pooled player munition, and you can see all the bullets which are spawned. Okay, so that's very quick of the bullet system. Now, if you want to create your own bullet from scratch, you can just go to Edit, Shmup boss, munition, create basic bullet template. And I've said, as I've said, the bullets are used the same for the player and enemy weapons. You just need to add a sprite to it, and it's already set up with the correct rigid body, 2D kinematic, and trigger collider. And that's all you need for a bullet. Now, a missile is slightly different. Let me just create from here, Shmup boss, munition, create, for example, player missile template. And you can see there are several components, so it's just easier if you just go through Edit, Shmup boss, create one, instead of doing it manually. You see you have a missile script which has almost the exact same settings as a bullet, minus the speed. The speed is controlled by the player missile mover over here, and it has a turn speed that determines how fast it works, and the tracker random enemy. So basically the player missiles only follows any random enemy without any specifics. And you have here a munition hit effect, which perhaps I can explain the effects in another tutorial, but just I'll explain them in another tutorial. Just means that when a missile hits something, it will spawn an effect. Just very quickly, we have inside the prefabs VFX, explosions, and you can just use any one of those over here and add a clip. And basically you have here, this will spawn an explosion once the missile hits something. Now this prefab for the explosion is just a simple sprite, only it has this element added to it, which makes sure it's despawned. This is important because everything in Shmup boss is pooled, so even the effects are pooled, and when they need to be eliminated, they'll need to be despawned. Just very quickly here, for example, I'll go and let me add another weapon. Let me call this one missiles, whatever. And instead of a bullet, I'm going to add player missiles. Let me add this one, for example. And let me change the rate, and because I've added another weapon, I'm going to add it over here. And let me apply the changes to my prefab. Just remember that this prefab, which is over here, is the one that being spawned. So if you make any changes here and you don't apply to the prefab, nothing, it won't show. Let me start. Now the missiles, of course, are not following anything, because there are no enemies. Later on, I can, or maybe I can just show them. You can also add some any modifiers to the weapons. For example, let me add a rotator, a circular rotator, and let's make it speed like this, and let's make the rate. And there are a couple more effects. Maybe I can show them once I get into the enemies. And yeah, let's show the particle weapons. It's just the same. It's different. It's different. So we go to weapons, player particle weapon. I'm going to drag and drop this one over here and make sure it has the correct position. And if we open up, We have multiple stages. Now we can't see anything. I'm going to pick this bullet. And the bullet I've just picked is just a material. It can be any material, just a sprite sort of alpha blended or an additive material, which a representation of the bullet. And you can add any suffix and change the volume. Same thing, let me add high rate, damage. Now you can't see, you didn't see anything playing because all the settings were set to 0. And the distance is how far it travels. Let's set it to 20, for example. Now the overtime, it's because this is a particle system. Once let me just click on it again to see. Maybe the rate is too high. Okay, because it's a particle system, so if this particle system is eliminated, any bullets which have already spawned will also be deactivated. So the overtime means that it will give it some time until it's eliminated. So if it makes any sense, if I put a overtime of 4 seconds, this means after this player gets destroyed 4 seconds, this weapon will get destroyed. So it gives it some time so that the particles are not eliminated. If you have any particle weapons and the particles just disappear instantly, just make sure you add some overtime. And the curve options, just you can just add any curve, for example, you want. Just let's make a quick one, and it will just change the way it looks. And the trail will add a trail to it. And we haven't even seen the, for example, the radial bullets. So let me just add 5 bullets, for example, and arc angle spread is what you need to make a radial bullet. The arc radius just pushes it away from where it's firing. Let's see, it's following rotation. And over here, again, I need to list it so that it can be used by the player shooter. And in the case of the particle weapons, it needs to be replaced. Okay, I know maybe I'm sharing too much information, but if you get into the script and you would like to modify things, this might help you understand a little bit how it goes. I'm going to apply. So I have a bunch of weapons now. And later on, I could show up perhaps with the enemy weapons, the focus rotator, and another script which uses it's a rate controller for changing how the weapons fires. So these are, for now, the basic tutorial on weapons. Let me save this one off. Just a reminder, all weapons need to be listed over here, and you must have a shooter. Once you create something from the template, it will come with a shooter already by default. Just let me, so just a reminder here, the bullets and the notes. Okay.